Families of the victims who tragically died in the Air India crash have now slammed the preliminary report as a cover-up. They have dubbed the report biased and said it only appears to blame the dead pilots. An initial investigation report into the Air India crash reveals the aircraft's fuel switches were cut off, which resulted into a catastrophic loss of thrust during the initial takeoff phase. Early findings in the 15-page report released by the Indian authorities indicate that switches to the engine's fuel supplies were moved from the run position to cut off. Analysis of cockpit's voice recording revealed that one of the pilots asked, "Why did you cut off?" To which the other pilot replied, "I did not." Though the report does not identify which comments were made by the flight's captain and which were made by the first officer. Captain Sumit Savarwal and First Officer Clive Kunder had more than 14,000 hours of flying experience between them, including some 9,000 hours on the 787. One relative of a victim on board the flight told the Telegraph that it's a cover-up to protect Air India and the government, while another person said they were not satisfied by the report. The Airline Pilots Association of India said the report was biased and without sufficient evidence. However, India's Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu told reporters that investigators probed in a mature and transparent way. Flipping the switches almost immediately cuts off fuel supply to the engines. It is most often used to turn engines off once a plane has arrived at its airport gate, or in emergency situations such as engine fires. But the inconclusive report, which came out 30 days after the crash, does not indicate that the flight encountered any such emergency situation. There was also no significant bird activity in the vicinity of the plane's flight. Experts say it is almost impossible to turn the switches off accidentally, as they must be pulled up and locked before flipping, a safety design that was introduced decades ago and is still being used. Protective guards are further installed to minimize the risks. Sources say the black box analysis have so far been unable to rule out improper and intentional action that caused them to be flipped. Interestingly, the report points out that the US Federal Aviation Administration in 2018 issued a special airworthiness information bulletin that highlighted that a few Boeing 737 fuel control switches were installed with the locking feature disengaged. But it was not deemed unsafe, and no airworthiness directive, which is a legally enforceable regulation to correct unsafe conditions in a product, was issued.
We want the investigation to be neutral and the perpetrators to be punished. We have lost what we were destined to lose, but we want no one else to die due to such carelessness.
The headline of the report really is to, if you will, to exonerate the pilot from pilot error. This is what the report was stating. Now, they didn't say that explicitly, but from reading from the findings, it tells me that it was in pilot error. And there's nothing, at least for now, for the time being, that points toward pilot error. As from the cockpit voice recorded, it appears they are trying to recover the flight from going down to the ground. What you do with the switch, it isn't simple as the light switches at home. You have to physically sort of not pull the pin, but if you have to pull the toggle out, then it can move to a different position. So you do have to do it on purpose, not accidentally knocking it to the wrong position. Very rarely that can happen, or is close to zero. And normally in flight, we do touch the switches for emergency checklists, for example, where you have to attempt to relight the engine manually, for example, or to switch it off to secure the engine. What it means is if the engine is on fire, you don't want it to keep running. You want it off. So you put it in the cutoff position. In that scenario, both pilots have to confirm the action, and they have to confirm whether they're switching off the right engine as well, because if you switch off the wrong engine, the only good engine, then yes, definitely you are crashing. So that's the safeguarding within the cockpit, verbal confirmation as well. What the report seems to be suggesting is the error with the chip. It's as simple as one chip not working properly, losing contact. Once you lose contact, it's kind of how electricity works. The signal works. It's not contacted properly. It's because of the thermal cycle is in a warm condition. It's been worked very hard, like your laptop stops working, basically giving you the blue screen of death we call on Windows. it doesn't command the fuel to be in a run position, even for a split second. The fuel stops for a couple of seconds, and the engine will start decelerating. I believe the FAA has, or together with GE General Electric, the engine manufacturer, has issued a service bulletin. I believe it was about 11,000 cycles. They will have to replace the chip. And if it is not replaced or maintenance isn't done correctly, it could lead to intermittent loss of signal. Once you have a loss of signal, the fuel isn't commanded, i.e. in the cutoff position, then there's no fuel going to the engine, which seems to have matched what the service bulletin was saying with this current investigation. I would say now the spotlight would be on, first of all, whether Air India has carried out the necessary maintenance and replacement of those chips according to service bulletin. And the second question will likely be for Boeing and General Electrics together, why it was issued as a service bulletin rather than an airworthiness kind of mandate, where a directive, or we call an AD, that you must carry out those actions.